But I'll let you read that. I'm just going to say.
Just start it out and we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening. This is a regular meeting of the Montclair Township Planning Board. Notice of this meeting has been published in the Montclair Times and the Star Ledger, as well as posted on the Montclair Township website and the bulletin boards outside the municipal building. All of this is in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act of the state of New Jersey. I'd like to start with our roll call. Mr. Borshoff?
Here.
Vice Chair Brodock is excused. Mr. Campbell?
Present.
Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. Ortiz is excused. Mr. Pierre?
Present.
Counselor Terry?
Here.
Miss Willis?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson is excused, and Mr. Neiman.
Here.
Okay. The first order of business tonight is we have to elect the chair and vice chair of the planning board. Our vice chair is not here, and the chair resigned as of the last meeting. So I do know that we have a nominating committee that has met, Mr. Terry, or Counselor Terry and Mr. Pierre. Does the nominating committee have a recommendation?
Yeah, we're going to make a recommendation that we have Keith Bodrick as our chair and Michael Graham as our vice chair.
Okay. And I know that Vice Chair Brodock has agreed to accept the position of chair of the planning board. Is there any discussion?
Well, I'm very pleased. I think that
Okay.
we've got excellent leadership to step right into the seat, and I'm very pleased with that.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ms. Willis. I appreciate that.
Okay.
She was talking about the chair.
I know.
I was talking about the chair and.
She did look at me hard, so
So I was looking him dead in the eye.
well, I do appreciate it. Thank
So
you.
do we have do we have a motion to appoint, or to appoint Keith Brodock as chair and Michael Graham as vice
Yes,
chair?
so moved.
Okay, movement by Ms. Willis,
Second?
second by Mr. Neiman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great. And
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say briefly, I didn't get to attend last meeting with Chair Nguyen, and his presence, the absence of his presence is really felt, and it really was an honor. His wisdom, knowledge, demeanor, the way he conducted a meeting. I know the chair and myself will do our best to continue that tradition. So thank you again very much. I appreciate it, and we'll miss Chair Nguyen very much. So with that, I think we'll start with the opening statement. Good evening and welcome to the June 10th regular meeting of the Township of Montclair Planning Board. In accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and by sending a copy to the newspaper designated by the township for notices. The meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live and will be available on demand on YouTube. This meeting is a quasi-judicial proceeding, meaning the board has powers and procedures resembling a court of law, and we are obligated to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions from them in order to provide the basis for an official action. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Please be advised that this is a no-smoking facility. Fire exits are to my right, your left, and the back of the room where you entered. As to the order of the evening, each application hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required, if any. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why variances are required. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, the attorney, and their expert witnesses. If you are a member of the public, if you are a member of the interested public, but not a witness in the case, you will have 2 opportunities to speak. At the end of each witness's testimony, you will be given the opportunity to ask the witness questions about his or her testimony. That is not the time to tell the board what you think of the application. To ask questions, you will have to come to the front of the room, give us your name and address, and then ask your questions related to the witness's testimony only. After the applicant's witnesses and any objector and objector witnesses have been heard, members of the audience will have their second opportunity to step forward. At that time, you may express your opinions, positive or negative, about the application. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person. An additional time that the public may be heard is when one or more residents present to the board as an objector to the application. Objectors may be represented by counsel and present their cases, including independent evidence and witnesses for the board to consider after the applicant has finished its case. Different from public comment, objectors and their witnesses are expected to present evidence for the board to consider, as opposed to only their personal opinions, and will be subject to cross-examination by the public and by the applicant. After completion of the applicant's case, objector's case, and public comment, the public hearing is closed, and the board members discuss the case and vote. You will be able to listen to our discussion, but you will not be able to participate. So I believe the first order of business was the roll call, and we've already completed that. The report for nominating committee, we've already completed that for position of chairperson and vice chairperson. So we have approval of the minutes from May 20th, 2024.
I haven't received any comments to the minutes from May 20th, which is probably our shortest meeting ever. So is that a motion to approve, Carol?
Yes.
Is there-
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
Okay, great.
Okay, I see we have no resolutions. There's no old business, so we will move to new business, application 2817, 260 Bellevue Avenue, Bellevue Theater. Whatever your preference is.
Both work. You
yeah.
can sit.
Just please make sure the microphone is turned on before proceeding.
Is
Thank
the little, is the green light on?
Green light?
Okay, that's good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Angelo Cifelli Jr. of the firm of Pyro, Zimmer, Cifelli, Paris, and Jenna Tempo, the applicant.
The green light's not on, because I don't hear you.
It's not. Oops.
Can you tap on it? It's not working.
Do you want to try the handheld behind you so you can still stay at the podium?
Yeah, well, I can move. It's not.
Now
Oh,
it's
there we
on. It's working now.
Oh, now it's on. Now it's lit. I'd start by saying that on behalf of the applicant, my office has effected service on all property owners within 200 feet. The notice of our application was published in the Star Ledger in accordance with the Municipal Land Use Act. I have delivered affidavits of service and affidavits of publication to the board secretary, so we're ready to go. I'd like to begin because this is a very long-standing situation, is the best way to put this. As I'm sure most of the board members are aware, this theater has been closed since 2017. And since then, the movie industry was substantially impaired by the pandemic. But through that all, the applicant who's here tonight has remained committed to the goal of reopening the theater and preserving the theater, and that's really why we're here tonight, to do that. That goal was shared by the planning board because the planning board recommended to the governing body that this property be designated for redevelopment. The governing body agreed with the planning board's recommendation, so the property is subject to redevelopment, a redevelopment plan. The application before the board tonight is in compliance with that plan. We do not require any variances at all. We are only here for site plan approval. I just want to say that in my opinion, and more than an opinion, a belief, the approval of this project will have a very positive effect, not only in reopening the theater and preserving it as an historic structure, but also a boon and a benefit to surrounding retail uses, economy, especially the plaza which is, as you all know, very close therefore. We believe this will be an economic engine for those businesses. We have submitted through our architect responses to the various planning reports that have been generated by board staff. I will have a representative of the applicant available at the end of our case should any questions be directed towards him. Other than that, unless the board has questions for me, I would like to bring up our architect.
Does anyone on the board have questions?
No.
Okay, please
Brendan?
proceed.
You could say, can he say seated?
Of
Oh,
course.
yes.
Absolutely.
Whichever you prefer. There's
You
even a
wanna do
handheld if you'd like to
exhibits?
point to anything on the screen.
While he's doing that, Janice, why don't you tell us the exhibits?
Thank you.
We pre-marked the exhibits for the application, so let me just read what they are. A1 is the application. A2 is the certification of taxes paid. A3 is the proof of publication. A4 is the affidavit of service. A5 is the survey prepared by Pronesti, dated September 27th, 2023. A6 is the site plan prepared by RHG Architecture and Design, dated June 1st, 2024. A7 is the engineering drawing prepared by Brian Liebskind, dated March 5th, 2024. A8 is the report from the Development Review Committee, dated March 11th, 2024. A9 is the report from Neglia Engineering, dated June 2nd, 2024. A10 is the report from the Planning Department, dated June 4th, 2024. And A11 is the report from the Historic Preservation Commission, dated April 29th, 2024.
Janice, I noticed that on the website there was an application back in, I don't know, two or so years ago, and
I think it's or so.
or so.
Yes.
And there were a number of documents. Are we treating those as?
Those are prior iterations. Unless there's something you want me to add, I didn't
No,
really
there's-
want to add prior iterations of the plan because it's gone through many changes.
Right. So there's nothing.
To bring them in at this point.
So, Mr. Cifelli, you've heard all of the exhibits that are being marked or that were actually pre-marked. You agree with that list, or do you want to add any or subtract any?
No, I'm fine with it. I will mention, though, that there was a response, the board staff had asked for a response to some of the comments, and that's in front of you now, but it doesn't have to be an exhibit.
Is the plan that you submitted and that you have on the, is that the same as the plan that was submitted, or is it, there's a change to it?
Including the changes.
Then I think we need to mark this as A12. This is the letter and the updated plans. Yeah.
You want to mark them
There's some
together?
changes.
Yes, there's some minor changes.
And it's a letter from RHG dated June 10th. Okay. That'll be A12.
Okay. Right, together. They're both together?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Yan? Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Sure. Brandon Yan. I'm with RHG Architecture Plus Design. I'm a senior project manager.
You can move that microphone closer to you, and if you could just speak up or speak closer to it so we catch you on the
Okay.
tape.
Brandon Yan with RHG Architecture Plus Design. I'm a senior project manager.
The address, Brendan?
491 Bloomfield Avenue, Montclair.
Mr. Yan, will you please share your qualifications
Thank you.
with the board, please?
It's It's my first meeting, so thank you.
I'm a registered architect here in the state of New Jersey.
Is that the same thing as being licensed?
Yes.
Okay, we'll accept.
Just before you do that, we're going to accept him as an architect, an expert in architecture?
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Yan, will you just give an overview of the project to the board? They have the plans, but I think you should walk them through it. That would be helpful.
Yes, sure. So previously, you have received the full-size drawings, and in front of you, what I have just handed out are the revised sheets to pick up comments that we have just received about a week ago. And all the changes are highlighted and on the half-size drawings that you have. An overview of our responses to the comments that we have received from the planning board, from the engineer's report, and also from HPC. A summary of those responses are, for the retail space, we have adjusted the window sizes so that they're a little bit wider and a little bit less tall, so that they would match what the storefronts typically would look like in Upper Montclair. And also, all the entrances for the retail spaces are wheelchair accessible. And we have shown details in our drawings of how they're being done. As far as for the apartments, the layouts are for illustrative purpose only. The final design and the required calculation and analysis would be part of the permit filing once we get the approval to use the space for residential use. An affordable housing requirement, as mentioned in one of the reports, is waived. It was back in February in the DCR report. And for the facade treatments, the wall-mounted light fixtures, they're all updated now per the HPC comments that the lights on the east side, they're all at the same height. And they are below 15 feet, so it's in full compliance with the Montclair Code, Section 281, 8.3. And the east window, the windows on the east facades, they have been updated to match those on Bellevue Avenue to be sash windows. That's one of the HPC comments. And the mural procurement process that's spelled out in the proposed scope on sheet 8002. The client has been working with Ria Movi with Ria X Gallery on Bellevue Avenue in Upper Montclair. They have there are few artists being considered. They're developing the themes now, and once the theme is in place, then we can assess what the cost would be like to execute artwork. And the client's interested in looking for partners in that regard, and is hoping that the township and maybe the economic development coordinator can be a partner in this process. And as far as the comments on the site, we updated the drawings to match the existing sidewalk with the survey. There were questions about the width, and the existing sidewalk is at least 5 feet wide, and we're extending the sidewalk in front of the proposed retail and matching it in width. It's going to be 5 foot wide as well, and details are shown on the civil drawings in the drawing sets provided. And also, we're adding a wheelchair ramp at the end of the extended sidewalk. The rain leaders all connected to covered drainage trenches in the sidewalk. We also provided detail in the engineer's drawings in the drawing set. The existing west parking spaces, they all get moved for about 1.5 to 2 feet to create a 5 foot clear pathway along the west side of the theater for exiting. Currently, there's about 3.5 feet, so we only need to move it for maybe 1.5 feet to 2 feet. And no changes in parking count is proposed to the existing parking lot. We're leaving everything as is. And the striping and wheel stop details that were asked are provided on the engineering drawings that we just resubmitted. And for the trash dumpster enclosure, we're proposing to use solid walls and brick masonry, and And we're not putting a roof over the top because we want the walls to be as low at 5 feet as possible, and while being able to open the lid of the dumpsters, so the dumpster themselves would be covered. And lastly, screens will be provided on the rooftop for the rooftop units. And once we finalize and know how tall the units are, then the screen would match accordingly to hide the units. So this is basically an overview of our responses to the comments. And if you like, I can go through the sheets and the specific details.
If I may add one thing, Mr. Chairman, on the parking spaces, those parking spaces are not for public use. They will either be for the residents of the apartments or the employees of the theater. There's no public parking back there.
To get to those parking spaces, you have to go through Lot 30, however.
Yes.
You have an easement of any kind?
We have already reached in principle a license agreement with the owner of that property. It's in the process of being drafted for final review and approval. My office is doing it. I will supply one as soon as it is signed by all parties.
And you
That would
said
be
there's no variance required for the change in the size of those parking spots?
No, there is none.
Okay.
So, but the parking lot, the size isn't changing, they're just moving it
It's
back. So that
adjusting the
Yes.
striping, okay.
The comments were, they wanted a walkway, and we wanted to provide a 5-foot walkway.
Yeah, it might help if you, because the planning board hasn't, I've seen these plans for many, many years. The planning board, this is the first time that they've seen the
I think it would be
plans.
helpful to walk us through that, yes.
Go right ahead. Yeah.
There should be a handheld microphone, somebody.
It's under the computer on the second
It's right on the second
level.
shelf. Is that missing some lines? Did it
Yeah, I
get-
think the lights might be too bright for the lines. So.
You want me to turn the lights darker, or, oh, there we go.
Mr. Yam, what drawing is that?
This one is drawing A004. So in the upper left-hand corner, that is the existing access to the parking lot in question, off of Bellevue Avenue. And on the screen here, hope you can see it. So this is the edge of the theater, and the shaded area is the pathway that we have created by moving this parking spots over by 1.5 feet while maintaining the parking count and putting wheel stops and restriping the parking spaces.
I believe one of the issues that we raised is that you can't have the parallel parking behind those 90-degree parking spaces. There's not enough, the aisle width is too narrow.
The existing measurement that we took out there was about 14.5 feet, and we're reducing it by like 1.5 feet to down to 13.
It's less than 15 feet, which,
The township requires 24 feet minimum for 90-degree parking spaces. So the fact that the existing parking spaces may be provided with 14 feet, that's still not compliant. And
If I may address that for a moment, we don't own that property, and we have no control over those parking spaces except for the ones that are by us.
all I'm saying is you can't, I mean, it's actually less than 14 feet. A car cannot back out of those spaces without hitting the cars in the parallel. So I don't know if that's in your agreement with this parking.
Well, at the time, and Janice, at the time we were negotiating the agreement, we were unaware of that. So I will certainly go back to the owners of that property and ask them about it, I would note that we don't require any parking
Right.
at all. So if worse comes to worse, there'll be no parking, but I'm hopeful it would be better to have some parking for employees and residents.
I think the issue here is that not so much as whether or not you're required parking, but it's that you're providing it. And
Well, I guess,
should this board approve the application, we're basically signing off saying that that's okay, and there's no issue.
what I'm saying is that I will go back to them,
Yeah.
and if they will not remove those parking spaces, we won't have parking.
I
We
think-
won't have any parking.
If we were to remove those spaces, would that cause an issue with the parking count?
No, there is no parking requirement.
Well, can you refresh our memory, or my memory, and tell the board, what is the nature of your agreement for the parking?
What we agreed to do was we would get access since several feet of the parking spaces are on our property as opposed to the neighboring property. The agreement would be that we would give them some parking on our parking spaces, keep some for ourselves. That would be the deal. Now, again, that agreement was reached prior to my being made aware that you wanted those parallel parking spaces removed. So I will have to go back to them and say that if they want to continue to park on our land and use those parking spaces, they're going to have to get rid of the parallel parking. And if I can't do that, I will notify the board that there will be no parking back there. That's all we can do.
So
We don't own that property, so it is not for us to do.
I think I'm just a little confused. There appear to be 10 parallel parking spaces in the rear. Is that correct?
I believe those are 90-degree parking spaces.
There's what?
90-degree parking spaces, right?
Yeah.
These are
Yeah, those are 90 degree. There's
And
only,
then there's
Oh,
Four.
these
These-
these are the parking spaces.
Yes, there's only, I was going to say, I thought there was like 4.
I think there's 4.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
3 or 4.
So, but you're making reference to wheel stops. These are parking spaces as well.
But can you explain it with the pointer so that everybody can follow along?
Yeah, I was
So-
going to ask that, Janice, if we would put the pointer up there so
Sure.
we could see it on the screen.
So this is one parking space, the 90-degree parking space, with these being the wheel stops along here. And then these are the parallel
Parallel
parking
parking
spaces in
spaces.
question.
Our concern is vehicles entering or exiting those 90-degree parking spaces will not have enough room to safely back out or even potentially turn in without there being conflicts, as currently illustrated.
If the first space, for example, were left vacant, could you perform a K-turn using that?
Not
Or is
the,
is the aisle width too narrow?
The aisle,
Yeah.
it would be really, I think it'd be really dangerous.
Yeah, with the parallel parking spaces there, again, there's at maximum 14 feet, and that's pushing it
and now we're talking about reducing it to 13
to
feet.
Yeah.
13 and change, yeah, so. And again, the town ordinance requires 14 feet.
But if they
and
were
that's
to
just
lo-
industry standard.
But to be clear, if they were to eliminate those spaces, we would not be in violation of any parking requirements.
No. I guess there's 2 options here. You know, you
Because, as Mr. Neiman pointed out, I don't know if you want to read that section, it says on-site parking is not required for the property if 50% or more of the building is used as a movie theater, correct?
Right.
That's correct.
And 50% or more will be used as a movie theater?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is more of a site plan issue. And I think it was created because the redevelopment plan states that there must be unobstructed pedestrian access outside of those doors.
Right.
Okay, now, the way you show it here is they showed a 4-foot wide pedestrian aisle. The question I have is, do we need a full 4-foot aisle along the side of the building?
Well, I think they're proposing 5 feet, correct? 5 feet?
Well, we're proposing 5.
Yeah,
5
they're
feet.
proposing 5 feet, so.
That's why we had to move the parking spaces back.
Right. Well, I'm just trying.
No,
talking
you're
about
being
options.
So the
helpful,
options would be to reduce the walkway, the width, or to remove the parking.
Or, no,
I-
if you can, for safety, as long as we make sure that there's access where those doors are and they can go between the cars,
Pedestrians.
the pedestrians.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to run along the side of the building. So if, that way you can move the parking spaces closer to the building, but you have to design them so that you can get out through the
There's
doors.
space, right.
So first of all, the access for pedestrians on this site is really primarily emergency egress,
Exactly.
right? This is not expected to be
Right.
day-to-day
No,
access.
no.
And then, but removing that walkway, that makes it 18 feet or so, which is still 6 feet below
But I think it's
standard.
doable.
Okay, I mean, do you
'Cause
agree?
It's out there, that's what they have today.
Yeah, but it would certainly improve what they have
Yeah.
today.
Okay.
Potentially.
Okay.
But I think the exercise still needs to be performed to confirm that, with the parallel and
Yeah.
perpendicular spaces working together, that there wouldn't be, a significant issue therefore, given that now this is going to be a residence, and likely, a lot more traffic being generated for use of those parking spaces. I think we need to make sure that,
Are they in
In either
existing
case.
condition, those
Yeah,
parallel
yeah.
spots?
Yeah.
They are, so
parking
they've
back there,
been,
I don't know if they're striped.
Yeah, they are.
They are striped.
Currently striped out? Okay.
Yeah.
so if we were to keep the site with its existing conditions, it could still function,
Right, all I would do.
even though it's not technically up to code.
All I would suggest is to restripe the 90-degree spaces so that you have appropriate egress at the doors. Right now it butts up, this parking spaces butt up right against the building.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that with where those doors are. So you need to have like pads, because the doors open out.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then you can make it designed so people can walk between the cars to get into, for emergency, so they can exit the building. It doesn't have to be a sidewalk.
So there are 2 exits, correct? Is that what I'm seeing, 2 means of egress?
Yes.
Correct.
On that
And-
side, right.
But if I'm not mistaken, did you say that you do not have control of these spots, or you
Do
do?
not have control of the 4 parallel spots.
The 4 parallel spots, I see, okay.
Where's the property line on that drawing?
Roughly here.
And I think the issue of safe egress may also be addressed. There's currently no ADA space provided along those 10 or so parking spaces.
Yeah.
I believe if that area directly in front of those doors are provided with an ADA accessible aisle and parking space,
Yeah.
that'll address the issue. There'll be plenty of clearance.
That makes sense.
And you'll also be in compliance with the ADA parking requirements. So it solves 2 issues at once.
You'd lose 1 parking space, but you could design it so that the barrier-free is where that door is, the double door. There's another door, I think you would just have to,
There's another one down here.
yeah, you'd have to
There are 2
adjust it for
exits.
both of those.
Maybe I should bring this up. Part of the reason, because we looked at both options, part of the reason why we ended up choosing have the pathway up against the building is allows us to install the exterior light to keep it illuminated.
Would you be unable to do that if,
It would be
under
a
the
lot more
existing condition?
challenging.
I'm sorry?
It'll be a lot more challenging.
Why? The light's on the building,
light.
isn't it? It's building mounted?
There'll be service mounted on the building wall, yes.
So
Then we have
that-
to figure out, like, because the light would have to throw probably about 20 some odd feet out now and maintain certain light level.
Oh, because the pedestrians are going to be walking further out, you'd need more light.
Behind the cars. Cars, yeah.
Okay.
But there's no issue, because beyond that is the train, right? The rail, and then Anderson Park?
Right, but we still need to illuminate the parallel
Just
part.
about right up against the rail.
So,
Are there any lights there now? Are there any street lights there?
I cannot speak to how many are there.
Well, could you request installing a variance to install the lights above 15 feet so that you could, if it's higher up on the building, it's not facing any residential homes?
No.
No.
Yeah, it's the
If
park
you
and the
install it
train.
higher up on the building, wouldn't that increase the spread of light?
Sure.
We can look into it.
Yeah, I would recommend
Okay.
that.
Well, that would have to, again, then be, the board would have to grant us variance this evening for that.
That would be a waiver. Yeah.
Waiver, yeah.
I'm sorry, could you repeat, who would be using these parking spaces again? It's employees and who else?
Well, the project is for 3 residential apartments
Yes.
eventually. So the thought was that would be parking for the people who live there,
Residences.
right?
Got
And
it.
some employee parking
Got it. Okay, thank you for
for the
clarifying.
theater.
I think that's a better solution, that rather than
I
have a
agree.
5-foot, walkway for emergency
Listen.
only. I don't want to see you lose parking back there.
Listen, I certainly agree, Janice, because it's, again, the walkway was put in because we felt we had to comply, so.
Right. Norberto, you mentioned something about the ADA space.
Correct.
How did, I missed that whole thing. How?
Well, by code, the ADA space needs to be provided at the nearest entrance to a building. So my thought would be that it would be provided directly in front of those double doors, which provide the ingress and egress into the building along the building facade. So that would be it's ADA accessible aisle.
These double doors up
Well,
there?
How will residents, how will residents get into the building? They're not getting in through those double doors. That's just an
through the
egress?
front.
There's a,
Those are just egress exits for the theater space. They're not entrances. And for the upstairs residential tenants, they would be coming down the steps, going around the building to go to the parking spaces. They go around like this.
Do you have any elevators in this building?
No.
So if a resident needed a wheelchair, there's no way for them to get upstairs.
Those are not accessible
They're not
apartments.
accessible. So the handicap parking would only be for customers?
patrons
or
of the.
Patrons.
of the theater.
But they could park there and then we go up the aisle to the front, which,
But parking is not required for the theater.
I know, they know that.
it's just that when you provide parking, you still have to
You-
meet the ADA requirements.
Right.
Even
If you're
if
going
it's
to
not
provide it, if
triggered.
you're not going to provide any, that's one thing. If you're going to, then you got to
So the ADA space would be by the double doors, but what about, would the solution be for that second means of egress? The single door?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the single door, you have the double doors, we suggest that's where we place the ADA compliant handicap parking space. There is a second means of egress, right? It says edge
Right.
of existing theater, number 3 above.
Right.
How would we ensure,
You only need to, you don't need to provide an accessible aisle in
You only
every
need one.
entrance. Yeah, it's just
but
one.
would there be any hindrance to the door being able to swing open?
In that case, again, they'd have to locate the parking spaces
Spaces.
so that they'd have to put in a concrete pad or something to protect that door so it swings open and doesn't hit a car.
There will be bollards on both sides,
Okay.
basically metal posts, just so
And that's-
that,
and
to
that
allow the
space-
door to be unobstructed.
And that space will probably have to be moved out a few feet from the front, from the face of the building. So-
Not necessarily, they just have to go a little bit more north or a little bit more south. And we
Right.
put the metal posts to make sure that no cars can park there and obstruct the swing of the doors. That would be done for both set of the egress doors.
Given how resident access is going to work, would there still be a pedestrian walkway kind of on the top half of the, basically from the start of the parking up to give them an easier path rather than having to walk either through a darkened alley or around the other building through the parking lot?
There will be lights installed on the facade along the way here.
Okay.
Part of the access that we created to link up Bellevue and the parking lot is to create this illuminated pathway.
Perfect.
Did you submit a lighting plan that shows that?
Yes. It's on the following, I believe it's A005.
Oh, that was not in the handout, I guess, because there's no changes to
No
it.
changes in that.
So, okay.
Is on the screen here now. So that all the light, there will be a series of lights here illuminating the path from Bellevue all the way to the parking lot on the west side.
Okay. So I don't think you've talked about the east side of the building or gone through the apartments.
Should I just go over the drawings quickly?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
If you have any questions, just let me know. I know it's maybe a little bit hard to read on the screen. So what you see here, this is the front of the building on Bellevue, and this is a stair that leads you up to the upstairs apartment, the 3 apartments that we're proposing. And then this is on the town right-of-way. This is the east side of the theater. What we are proposing is to put the retail space in what is currently Theater 1 and opening up the walls to allow 3 separate retail spaces over there. And we have gone over and have and looked at this with the HPC, and we adjusted based on their comments of, as I mentioned before, maximizing the windows and put a masonry bulkhead below the windows. So this matches what is typical in that part of Montclair for storefronts. And then we also added these sash windows to match what's in front to keep them the same vocabulary. And we noted that the height of the lights, so they're all about 7 at the more towards the north, because the sidewalk slopes down, is about like 8 feet, is right above the door. And all the lights are at the same height. And all the lights are below 15 feet, as I previously mentioned. And then on the second drawing, the only change compared to what we have shown you before, we just added to address Norberto's comment of where we're putting the snow stockpile a bit up against the building at the edge of the sidewalk while maintaining a walkway for the pedestrians. And on the upper left-hand corner, this is where you can find the description for the mural and the proposed scope of work.
Can you show the board members where the murals are proposed?
On the east side of the building, the future location of the mural would be on the facade here above the retail spaces.
I thought it was just one portion of that. I thought it
We
was-
showed the entire facade to HPC back in April.
The whole thing's going to be a mural?
Yeah.
Or could be a mural?
It
Could
could
be.
be.
Okay.
Would it be flat? Because it looks like there are divisions.
Those are existing structures that's separating. Yeah.
Right, so the anticipation would be that it would be flat for purposes of the mural?
Yes. Maybe it's up to the artist. Maybe they'll work all the verticals into the theme, but that's yet to be developed.
Yes, it's kind of a narrow driveway, so it couldn't extend out very
Right.
far.
Right.
I think that the HPC, and in previous iterations of this plan, there was a lot of thought that it's a very ugly facade of that building. It's concrete block, and it would be preferable to make it a work of art.
And that was their suggestion initially.
Right.
That wasn't the HPC, but we agreed.
I think we had seen previous plans with murals.
Where
on
were
the
the
side of
murals?
the
And we had
building.
agreed that was a good idea.
Yeah, so I
yes.
thought it was a great idea. And by the way, the Economic Development Coordinator is willing to meet with you to talk about grants to do a mural program.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then the client's also interested in doing some public art on the other side of the building, the side that faces the railroad track.
The iteration I saw, it had been some concern that it might be a sign. Is that still under consideration?
That was just for the illustrative purpose. We heard the
I kind of
comments
liked
that
it,
should
but I
be
know
a
I was
sign.
alone on that.
It could be, you know, it could
But-
be like a sign Upper Montclair,
Yeah,
but not Bellevue Theater, you
Ah.
know what I mean?
yeah.
Might be like, welcome to
Welcome to,
Yeah.
yeah. Got it.
We
Historic
would never
Montclair.
allow a mural
I like
that is
that
a sign.
even better.
Historic.
Yeah.
And then the following page, that is just a survey to show the topography and certain utility information. Then that should address some of the comments that we have received in the engineering review report. This one might be a little bit hard to read. We put this in a couple submissions ago to show the circulation and how the people can exit the theater, and to show that we have a continuous pathway around the building. The comments of like how we need to adjust the west facade is taken, so we'll make the update.
Which sheet is this?
This is A004, the one that we had looked
Oh,
at
A004.
previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
And then the next one, A005, is showing all the exterior light and the light level of each one of them that we have shown on plan. For the most part, we're meeting the township requirements of the 0.5-foot candle. However, on the east facade, because the building's right on the property line, we likely would need to ask for some kind of consideration here. A waiver. Because there's no way for us, just because the building's right on the property line.
And sorry, what was that waiver for? I just want to make a note.
For the light intensity level.
Ah,
Yeah, I believe the township allows a maximum of 0.3-foot candles along the property line, so.
It's your maximum is 0.5, isn't it?
But when it's
Believe
at the
it's-
property line, it's
Oh,
0.3.
okay,
along the
Yeah.
property line.
right.
and that was on the west elevation, you said? Or
On the east.
On the east elevation.
Yeah, on the town right-of-way side.
And do we have any concern with that? Well,
For the exceedance,
Yeah.
given that it's along the driveway, I don't see an issue
Okay.
with that.
And on the next drawing, A006, we're showing the 3 retail spaces and the 3 upstairs residence, the apartments. The only change that we made was at the highlighted part, we adjusted the sidewalk just to match the survey, the contour and the shape of the sidewalk. There were questions in one of the reports about the widths. So the existing width is 5 feet. We're maintaining that and extending the sidewalk all the way to the southeast corner. And we added a wheelchair ramp at the bottom. And the following page is just to show the upper A007. It showed the upper level of the duplex units, the residential units, and also showing the rooftop units. And the revision that we have made in this past week was to add the screening, screen for the rooftop units on both sides. The exact height is to be determined as, once we know how big the units are, then we'll match the height to make sure that they're properly screened.
Those units are for purposes of the apartments?
These 3 units are for the theaters. This location would be for the retail spaces,
For the?
for the retails,
I see.
yeah. And, the apartment units would be somewhere here on the low roof is concealed. You can't see them.
So those units already exist, so you know how tall they are.
These 3 already we know, but this here we don't know yet. So just to make sure that we do it one shot and lining them up.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the following page on A008, this we have submitted previously, and just to show the different lights that we plan on using on the building facade to illuminate the pathway, and also to be over the emergency exit doors. And then A009 is to show one of the typical rooftop units that we're using for mechanical, the profile of the storefront that we're proposing, the color, and also the construction of the dumpster enclosure.
We actually do require a roof over the enclosure. The concern is that not always, the dumpsters are not always shut, and particularly if it's in a mixed-use area like this, where people can see the dumpsters from above. That's why our requirement is that there should be a roof over the top of the dumpster enclosure. You might want to make it a little bit taller and put a roof on so you can actually get the dumpster in there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, the section that we saw was, if it's made of wood, then we need to put a roof over it, but if it's made of
You're
the similar
incorrect.
material,
You're
solid
incorrect.
walls.
It doesn't matter. No matter what kind of, whatever it's made of, it still needs a roof.
The concern here is because we still want the dumpster to have lids, then we probably would need to raise the walls much, much higher in order to be able to open it on a daily basis.
Well, I think you'd probably want to have the walls higher. People would be walking past there. It's only 5 feet tall.
Just say yes. Gotcha.
What the attorney says.
I've been a planning board attorney a long time myself, and just say yes. That's not a problem.
Sure. And then the following is the engineer's drawings showing the various details that would address the comments that we have received, including making the sidewalk thicknesses more. I think it was increased to 5 and 7 inches per Norberto's comments. And we're showing the expansion joints, the trench drain detail, the curb detail, and so on.
That's a project.
So I have a question that's been,
Go ahead.
ever since I started reviewing this plan, it's been bugging me. When I go to a movie theater in, I don't know, Clifton or somewhere else, and I walk down the hallway to get from the box office down to my movie theater, I can hear the movies, this pounding sound of movies as I'm walking down the hallway. Are people who are going to live in these apartment units going to feel the pounding of the movie, the sound of the movie? Is that something that has been taken into consideration?
We haven't started looking into designing the units yet. We're just hoping to get the approval for the change of use, then we will start looking into it. There are ways to mitigate what I'm hearing is probably from vibration.
Yes.
Would you excuse me for a second? I would just inform by the client that between the theater and where we're proposing to have the apartment, there's actually a 16-inch solid load-bearing wall.
That should do the trick.
That would help to mitigate, yes.
That'll do it.
Are there any further questions from the board?
Ms. Willis, you're,
Could you give me a little bit more information about the parking for the apartments? I understand that there is no requirement that parking be provided because it is the theater, and it's 64%, I believe, not more than, which is more than 50.
Right.
But you are providing some parking, and there's two two-bedroom apartments and one one-bedroom apartment. Those spaces that you've been talking about, how many exactly are there? Are there 5 spaces? I thought you said there were 4 or what? How many spaces are there?
There's actually, well, we have to make an adjustment now. There were 10, I think now there'll be 9.
Okay. So are these going to be assigned to the apartment? Will
again,
the
I-
people who live in the apartment have an assigned parking space in those?
We need to have you speak on the,
You gonna swear him in?
well,
We can do that, but if you want to convey.
Yeah, I think the first three are certainly dedicated to the residential people. If, I think a lot will depend on who rents, and if they, if there's more parking needed. We'd like to keep at least one or two for employees of the theater.
Of the first three, one will become a handicap space.
Right.
So that will have to
Yes.
be adjusted as well. Okay.
And when you say the first three, you're using the sequencing of the parking spaces as they appear on here?
On the plans.
Because they're not numbered. Okay. Okay.
Any further questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Couple questions for me regarding drainage. It's noted that the plans were revised to include trench drains along the eastern facade that connect to the roof leaders. However, I believe the redevelopment plan specifically states that those roof leaders are to be tied directly to the storm sewer. Is there any reason why they can't be connected directly to the storm sewer? And reason why I pointed out is because in our experience, the trench drains work great when they're first installed, but over time, maintenance is not kept with. They become clogged with debris, and then it just becomes a nightmare down the road. And don't really function as intended. So that's our concern with keeping it as the trench drains as currently illustrated.
Before you answer that, if they had to connect, they would have to go underground and connect out where, in the street, in the right-of-way?
Yeah, I believe there's a catch basin right in front of the theater on Bellevue Avenue, and there's also actually a storm sewer that runs through the property on the west side of the building as well.
Yeah. Didn't we discuss at the DRC meeting about looping them into that catch
Yes.
basin?
Yes.
Or that drainage? Not sure the technical term for it.
Yes, yeah, that was discussed. So
Yeah.
could you provide a little bit more information on that?
Yeah, sure. So we have looked at that with the engineers, and it, on one hand, is quite costly to have to do all that work, and maybe not possible, given it's an old building. And the way we will have to do is drain them, maybe connect back into the building, which they don't advise. They believe it's a bad idea to drain it back inside the building. And with all the leaders, we would have to bring them across and collect them all to drain to those two spots from the roof. And that becomes a visual challenge as well. So
Okay.
we noticed that, like, the properties at 254, at 255, and even at the current northwest corner of the building, we already have a trench, covered trench drain at the sidewalk, and with a leader tie into it. But actually, at both corners, the northeast and the northwest corner of the building. So we're just keeping the same practice and do it on the east side as well.
Okay. Yeah, in this case, I think it's a little unique in the sense that the redevelopment plan specifically states that they're to be connected directly into the storm sewer. So I defer to Janice on this, but I think it may require deviation if they're going to be just discharging at grade, instead of, as indicated in the plan, directly connected underground. But again, our concerns remain with, the maintenance long-term. Those open trenches, again, they get filled with debris, sediment, leaves, they get clogged up. So there's going to have to be a maintenance program that's kept with to make sure that those remain functional.
I think the reason we brought this up when we did the redevelopment plan is because we know that there are stormwater issues in this area downstream, particularly downstream from this property. And anything we can do to alleviate the flow, and that's why we thought that we can improve the existing stormwater system by feeding it into the existing stormwater. We can improve stormwater management by feeding it into the existing stormwater system rather than just flowing into the storm pipes, the what do you call it, the curbs, tie into the catch basins.
Yeah.
If I
So-
may, again, and I understand what Janice said, and nothing is perfect. Sometimes I think people tend to make the perfect the enemy of the good. I think the project has to be looked at as a whole. I think it's an old building. There are absolute challenges to bring it to where we want it to be. And we're hoping that the board can look at that and give us a waiver on that aspect of it. I am sure, I can tell you, I know my client, there will be a maintenance program. You can rest assured of that. He will be the landlord, so
Is that a condition we can put on approval, the maintenance plan?
absolutely. Oh, I don't-
Or do we legally have the authority to make that a condition? Okay.
As long as Sefeli comes down.
I'm sorry, I stepped on his toe. It's just, but I've been a planning board attorney so long, I'm just like, answer.
And one last question. Given that the site is partially located within a flood hazard area, specifically where the proposed retail spaces will be located, are there any, I know you said you're still working on the designs, but do you foresee any potential, like, flood-proofing measures being included for those retail spaces, or not?
Once we start designing the spaces, I'm sure we will look into those.
Okay.
Yeah, at the moment, not.
The base elevation of those stores is higher than the base elevation, I believe, where Charlie Brown, the stores where Charlie
Upper
Brown's used to be,
Montclair.
right? Because I think as you go down towards the parking lot, the elevation goes down.
It keeps, on the east side, right? It keeps going down, yeah.
Right.
So it's higher than the Upper Montclair Plaza.
I do know there's times when it floods down there, and you see the store owners have to put sandbags out in front of their stores, but you're at a slightly higher elevation. So
Yeah, I think
again,
we're higher.
that's why we put this provision in here, to try and do everything we can to reduce storm flow going downstream.
Mhm. No further questions.
Thanks. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay. Are there any further witnesses?
I have no further witnesses, Mr.
Okay. Then at this time, we will go to comments from the public regarding the application. Does anybody from the public wish to make a comment? All right, public comments are closed. If you'd like to offer your summation?
Question, Janice.
Yeah.
I would just go back to my opening. It has long been the goal of both the township and my client to save the theater as an historic structure. I think this application does that and will also serve as an economic boon to the downtown area and especially the plaza. And on those considerations, I would request the board to look favorably upon the application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will move to the board deliberation. Any comments from the board? Okay, Council, Ms. Willis? Jacob, would you like to? No. I would just like to say that I agree with your comments, that this is an important site for the municipality. I think the applicant and your architect have done a good job of maintaining the historic character of this building, of updating its use. I think adding that retail space in what is otherwise a dead zone in that retail section will enhance the area, and overall, I'm personally very supportive of this project. And all the professionals that I've worked with, either on the Historic Preservation Commission side or on the Planning Board side, have been, I've enjoyed working with all of them and respect the work that they've done. All right, with that, I think we should go to a vote. I guess the motion would be to approve with conditions. All right, I believe we have to go through these, right?
I'm happy to go through them.
I think we were going to restripe the 90-degree spaces to make sure there's appropriate egress, add an accessible aisle in front of the double-door exits on the west elevation. We were going to provide a waiver for the lights on the west elevation to allow additional height so that they can properly illuminate the street. We're going to ensure proper egress for that second means of egress on the west elevation, that single door means of egress. We were going to waive the light intensity requirement on the east elevation or the west elevation?
East.
East elevation. Elevations, okay. We're going to add a roof to the trash enclosure. And we were going to...
I think it was, the question was, was the height of the trash enclosure going to increase
Yes.
in order to produce or have a roof?
Yes,
So the height, we're
Yes.
going to require additional height on the trash enclosure and a roof.
And a roof.
And a roof. And we're going to require a maintenance plan on a maintenance plan for the drainage plan.
And a deviation from that provision in the plan.
Redevelopment plan.
And a deviation for the redevelopment plan, proposed drainage plan, if you will. All right, so that's the,
The question will be on the maintenance plan, what is it that will be, sorry, on the maintenance plan, does the board have any sense of what should be required? Maybe even Norberto, you could help us out with this, on what kind of maintenance plan would be required. I was making a joke about Cifelli coming down with a snake, once a year and snaking it out.
Yeah, so the DEP has specific standards with respect to, typical maintenance. Generally require inspection, over, if a certain threshold is reached for a rainfall event, just be inspected, make sure it functions properly, as well as, routine, maintenance, regardless of whether or not rain event has happened. So that's something we can certainly work with the applicant on, and making sure that those requirements are met.
Good.
excellent. Thank
Was
you.
there something to be worked out with the ownership of the property? There was something about some of the parking was jointly owned space or something with the neighbor.
Oh, we were going to maintain the existing condition of the walkway, that I
So
believe.
it was
and
something that
would-
had to do with the neighbor and
Right,
ownership.
that I think was also a condition, maintain the existing condition of the walkway,
Right. Okay.
which would alleviate
Okay,
that,
okay.
that necessity, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because it's
I would
currently functioning
recommend
that
that,
way now.
Right.
that the applicant submit a revised plan to the planning department for professional review prior to submitting your building plans, and all these other items for resolution compliance.
Based on the conditions and the things we've discussed here tonight? Okay.
And I believe there's also discussion on providing the easement agreement.
Yeah, the
Yes, I was
license.
just about to mention that.
Yeah.
Sounds like that does it.
I think so, yeah. So motion to approve the application with the conditions as stated.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for your attention, board members. We appreciate it very much.
All right. So next item of business, we have committee reports. Do we have any additional committee reports beyond the election of the officers?
Actually, we're going to have to, because I anticipate there'll be quite a bit of change, and I think we should wait to make appointments until the new council comes to, because there would be probably 3 new members to the planning
Very
board
fair.
at least. So let's hold off on committee appointments until the new members come on board.
I think that's a wise decision. Okay.
So,
I definitely pulled Art's bill, but I don't see any other bills, so I don't know. Were there any bills to be
There are
paid
no
tonight?
bills this time.
No bills. So with that, I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
When you said you pulled my bill,
I'm
what
sorry,
did
Art,
you
I
mean by
I believe
that?
there's a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Great. Congratulations, meeting one.